New addition for the shop. So, bought this from a fellow down in Connecticut named Aaron. He had bought it, used it once, never used it, was gonna set up a new endeavor with it, and it ultimately just never panned out. So he moved it along to me. I went down and picked it up. So far, I'm super impressed. I need to make some pieces to line up the rear end to the front end and the frame and do all the setup work. And I'm like, well, I could make my own. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut 4 of these. I did one test piece just to see how it would go, and I'll show you how I'll use these later. But the idea is these will fit. You know, these gunny wheels are pretty straight, quite straight. So the idea is I can set these down on the bottom, pull them up, clamp them, then I can either run strings or tape measures or do whatever I need to do. So I'm going to cut 3 more of these, get them in the paint booth, but super impressed with this thing. It's got a water table. Everybody says it leaks. I haven't seen it drip yet, so hopefully Aaron sealed that up quite nice. It does splash a lot. Especially when the plasma is cooling down. So I'm going to run 3 more of these guys, but the water table's nice because it really keeps the smoke down, which is a big problem with plasma, especially in a confined space like this. So I'm going to run a few more. I'll show you when I get ready to cut the next one. Okay, I've just jogged over to where I want my new 0 to be, and all you do is hit 0 axis. Very simple setup. It's not the most eloquent CNC machine I've ever used, but seems totally functional. So I am going to start it right here. Just hit run again. Now this unit has the what they call torch height control, and it actually goes off, touches the surface so it knows exactly how far away it needs to be. Then it starts up and lights. Do all the inside holes and features first. If you do this after the perimeter, it tends to move. Now it's cutting the perimeter. This is 1/8 inch stock cutting at 100 inches per minute. And there it is. There's a brief cool down period for the tip, just blowing air through the tip, kind of preserve that. You can see some steam coming up, but overall, the smoke situation's amazing. I'm super pleased with that. So yeah, I'm gonna play with this for a while, and hold on, I just gotta reset the work now, jog this out of the way. So you can see what I do is, because this is 1/8 inch stock and it's kind of a bear to bend, what I do is I'll put little slits where I got to bend it. And then that gives me, you know, then I'm only bending those little tabs and it still gives me the accuracy I need. That didn't fall out. That's interesting. And there's a couple of pieces of slag here. I might be just a whisker too fast on this right now, but I will play with it a little bit and keep moving through these. So literally I was able to cut those out in like, I think it was 2 minutes each. Crazy fast. That would have taken me days. And I took them, bent them in the vice brake, this thing here, because it is 1/8 inch. This little 8 inch vice brake works pretty good. I've got them in primer now. I'm gonna just get them painted before I try to use them, just because if I don't, they'll never get painted and just get rusty like that truss. So I just threw some epoxy primer on them, just rattle can primer, and I'll hit them with some paint once it's dried off, and we're good to go. All right, so those are the alignment plates that I made. They're in red. Terrible paint job. Anyway, I can see them and it won't get thrown away. I've set the car down. I put the blocks directly on the floor, took the skates out, got this thing sitting on that. Then I put it on these turn plates so I can see where 20 degrees is. And now I'm gonna go through and set up the caster camber, which is way off right now. I haven't tried to set up any of that yet. I literally just slapped it together. So I'm gonna adjust camber first, then caster, and then I'll do the other side. Then I'll use my new plates to do toe. Then I'll move to the rear end and line that up. So let's just get started with that. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is get the caster and camber set up. I'm supposed to have like a 1/4 degree positive, excuse me, 1/4 degree negative of camber. Currently, I have, just got to level up the bubble here. Currently, I have almost about a half. So I'm going to pull in the front here a little bit because I believe this is out too far. Ooh, wrong way. Get that pulled in. Tell him, yeah, going the wrong way. My bad. Let's get this out. Three-eighths. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so I'm about a 1/4 right there. I'll fine tune that once I get it going the other way. But now I'm going to do caster. So the first thing you do is you turn the wheel out. Or actually, no, you turn the wheel in 20 degrees. I'm on the rotating plates, so I can see right where 20 degree is. Re-level my bubble. Set my caster reading to 0. Now come back 20 degrees the opposite way. So there's 0. Almost 20. All right, there's 20. Level up. And I gotta ton. I think I went the wrong way. I think I'm supposed to 0 it here. Yep. 0 it here and go 20 the other way. Yes, that makes more sense. All right, level up my bubble, and I got a ton. Right now I'm at 8.5. Okay, so I've got to bring in the front a little bit. I'm going to go back to 0 so I can watch my camber as I do it. Okay, level the bubble. Now I've got to bring the front in. I'm looking for about 6 degrees. And bring the back out a little. To maintain my camber. Okay, there's a quarter. Let's try that again. Out to 20. It's much easier with a steering wheel. Okay, there's my 20. Reset my gauge to 0. Now I'll go 20 the other way. Doesn't look like I changed it much. And I did not. All right, still at roughly 8.5. Okay, let's come back to 0. Level the tail bubble. Oh, there's 0. Okay. So I've got to lean that top A-frame forward. I got too much caster now. So that means I got to pull the top in. I'm going to pull this one out a little bit to get my camber back. A little bit more. Right now, I'm just trying to get this close. I'm going to redo all of this again when the body's all on it and I'm at total ride height, but it's pretty easy to get to right now. If nothing else, it'll make it easier to push around the garage. So now let's go back to 20. Okay, there's 20. Zeroed. Oh yeah, I affected it that time. Big time. Okay, so there's 0. Bring it around 40 degrees or 20 degrees the other way. And caster is what keeps the wheel stable at high speeds. So you definitely want that. It also is the thing, you ever notice when you're going down the road and you make a turn and you let go of the steering wheel and the wheel wants to straighten out? That's caster. Caster does that for you. All right, I'm about 5 3/4. I went too much. Okay, back to 0. shooting for 6, according to heights. Let's see. All right, so this one I want to extend out a little bit. This one the opposite way. That should just about do it right there. So, what's my camber? Camber's at 1/4, perfect. Going back to 20. And back to 20 the other way. It's toasty up here today. The AC is just not quite keeping up. Six, right on the money. Perfect. Okay, I'll straighten that back out, and then I'll lock those down. This has a cool little turnbuckle adjustment with a left thread and a right thread collar, and you can pretty easy to lock it in. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to go do that on the other side. Okay, so the first function of these little racks that I made is to set toe. And I got a nice little slot, front and rear, that I can hang my rule in. I just taped it down because, well, I don't have anybody here to help me. And then you just run it across, set a rule on the front and back, and I am towed in like crazy. I've got 65 3/8. In the back, I am 66 1/4. So I'm almost an inch in right now. So I got to adjust on that. And it's simple, just a little rack and pinion setup. So it's not even locked, so it should go pretty easy. I'm gonna adjust it out till I get it to about, I like about an 1/8 inch towed in. So I believe that's what Heights recommends. Yeah, 1/8 inch toe in plus or minus an 1/8. So you could be 0 to 1/4 in according to that. So I'm gonna go for an 1/8 in just as a starting point. Again, I'm gonna redo all of this anyway at some point, but that's the first functionality of this plate system I did. And I can just get started with that. Okay, so now you can see the other function of these plates. I have them set up so that you can put a string in these notches, okay? And I have it lined up on the 3rd notch from the outside, 3rd notch from the outside. And basically I just set it up so, and I know my front wheels are a little wider than my back. That's actually on purpose. So that it just makes rim choices a little easier for the rear. But at the end of the day, now I can take that string and measure into my frame along the side rails. And what I see is immediately it's closer in the front than the back. So the rear end is turned a little bit. And that is also supported by the wheelbase. So by these putting a rule in this slot right here and running down and measuring this slot, I'm pretty much right spot on 108 inch wheelbase. And over here, I have something smaller. So I am about a good 3/8 of an inch turned this way. So I've got to figure out what's going on here, and first things first, I got to get my wheels straight with the frame. I mean, my rear end straight with the frame. So what I'll do is I'll repeat the string exercise on this side, make sure I don't have anything weird going on, and measure to the frame. Then I will take and adjust the rear end. And, you know, obviously this side's a little bit ahead according to the front wheels. So this side has to go back a hair, 3/8 of an inch, actually more than a hair. And you can see I have a little dot on the frame right here that I actually just prick drilled a little bit, and then I painted it in yellow just so that I'd know that's supposed to be top dead center of the rear end, and it definitely looks like the rear end is a little bit forward of it. So I will do that, pull this back about 3/8, check my measurements again, and see what I come up with. Okay, quick change of plan. So the first thing I've got to do is obviously get this rear end twisted around. So what I happen to have a little level with a magnetic base and a laser line. So it shoots a nice line out of it. So that, you know, right on the rotor, that should be as true as I need to get it, right? And if I check the center line of the chassis and come up here, the edge of the green tape is where that line should reside. So first thing I got to do is twist the rear end a little bit, move the passenger side back a hair, and now I've got it set up so I can just move it back till I see it hit the green line, and I know I'm straight. Once the rear end is straight, then I can start working forward on pinion angle and all that, although I have a very, very steep pinion angle right now that I probably should take some of that out before I even get started, because it's just going to mess with me later. So, yeah, first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to disconnect one of the top 4 link bars, so I'm only fighting with one of them. And then I can use that to get my pinion angle somewhat right. And I just got to figure out which one I want to disconnect. But I'll show you what I've got when I get into it a little bit here. All right, so it's a little tricky doing this while the rear end's underweight. I had to lift the rear of the frame a little bit. I disconnected the lower 4-link bar and just pulled back a little bit with a strap on the very bottom. And it was no problem. I've actually gone just a little too far now. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm just a little bit over the edge of the tape. I want to be right on the edge of the tape. So, and my pinion angle looks much better. I don't know if I've got it right yet. I got to measure all that in a minute, but first thing I want to do is just get the rear end square and the wheelbase right. I know the wheelbase is right on this side, so I am working on that side. Now, at the end of the day, what I really want to do is get the wheelbase right with the lower control arms, and then I will switch to the upper control arms to get the pinion angle right. That was kind of the way I was taught to do it. So, yeah, let's see what we get. But I'm much happier with my pinion angle now. It looks much closer compared to what it was. I know it's a little hard to get a good reference here, but it almost looks like a straight shot right now coming off from the yoke onto the drive shaft. So I am going to adjust this control arm, get it to a point where it's fairly happy and my laser's on the right spot, and I'll go from there. Okay, here's where we're at. I got the rear end lined up. You can see, well, hopefully you can see, my laser line is right on the edge of my green tape. So my rear end is now perpendicular to the chassis center line. Perfect. So that's good. The next thing I had to do was set my pinion angles, and my pinion angle. My tail shaft angle is 2 degrees down. Drive shaft is about, it was 0.9, it went up to 1.3 up. And I've matched the rear pinion exactly with the transmission tail shaft. So the rear end pinion is at 2. So it's a little more than I'd like to see, considering you add the 2 and the 1.3, that's 3.3 on both ends. But they are equal. So that's as good as I can get it right now. I don't really know what I could do to make that better, short of lowering the rear end in the car more. And I'm just about out of options to do that. So I'm gonna, my 4-link bars are just a little downhill right now, so it's right where I want it currently. I do seem to be a little tight on my drive shaft. I've got a drive shaft to muffler clearance. I got to open that up a little bit, which I will do. All I got to do is pull the drive shaft out and clearance that muffler a little bit with a heated piece of pipe, and that should work out pretty good. So I've got the caster camber set up. I've got the rear end lined up to the chassis. I got my pinion angle set. That is just about all I needed to do to this before I started getting back into the body. So I feel like I've got a pretty decent handle on this at this point. Certainly close enough to put everything back together, although I might pull that drive shaft out and just try to clearance that muffler while I can get to it super easy. That's again, I'm just gonna put a nice little ding in that corner of the muffler and just give myself about 1/4 of an inch there, and I'll be fine. Looking back at this, I really wish I had gone with a pinion centered rear end instead of a equal a centered housing. A centered pinion would have been a little better, certainly for my muffler clearance. But hey, is what it is. It'll work fine. Tight is right. So anyway, next steps, I think I'm going to go back in and start masking the body off for jam paint. So I just wanted to get all this done while I had the body off and had plenty of access, and I think I've done that. So yeah, that's about it for now. Everything else, I do have to remask my upper trailing arms, my upper 4-link bars here. Had to peel the masking back on that to get those manipulated. I'm glad I did too. I found one of the spring clips had popped out of the little universal joint there, the little pivot joint. So be keeping an eye on that. It'll be on my checklist. But other than that, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to clean up some of this too, and clean up some of this overspray with Gojo wipes. Work perfect for cleaning up overspray. You can see I cleaned that with, just touched it with a Gojo wipe, overspray comes right off. I don't know what's in those things, but it's amazing. Anyway, gonna continue on, and I'll bring you along for the jam paint next.